Want to go out, Draco? Oh my goodness, it is so beautiful out today. It is just a little gusty. Hopefully that doesn't mess with the sound quality too much. But wow, I haven't gotten to give a garden tour in the sunshine in a tank top in months. I just saw this little buddy on my railing. I'm gonna take a closer look and figure out what kind of wasp he is. But wasps are good. They're a good sign. Wasps are a predator in the garden, which means that they are out there killing a lot of the things that you don't want in the garden. And while there are some wasps that might be a little aggressive, specifically yellow jackets, most wasps, like the one that I just showed you, they won't bother you if you don't bother them, and they're gonna do a lot of good for helping keep your garden free of pests. So if you see wasps like that, and especially the paper wasps, the ones that make the little nests up on your porch, as long as they're not really in your way, let them be. They're doing good work. As you can see, the garden is finally fully mulched, which feels really great. It makes the whole garden look a little more put together, which kind of combats some of the anxiety I have when things are out of order. There's still quite a bit of weeds. I do need to do some straw mulching and pull a few of the more aggressive looking weeds, but for the most part this is looking a lot more put together than it did. For example, right in here, this is all weeds that need to be straw mulched or pulled out. I've got path here and then space here before the trellis here. So we're gonna have tomatoes right along here, but I want to make a little bit more room in front of them for some extra stuff right along here. I think something that I did last year that was a mistake was making my pathways too wide. And by that I just mean that I felt like I was wasting a lot of space. My garden does get kind of jungly, so last year I did have super wide paths because I thought, well, I'm barely able to walk through them as it is. But I realized that the bigger problem was really just that I was doing a bad job keeping up with trimming back the plants. And so if I trim the plants back a little bit more aggressively, maybe it won't be as much of a problem. Anyway, if you haven't seen how I normally do mulch in the pathways, I do save a lot of cardboard and put down cardboard and then mulch on top of that, because that's a really good biodegradable barrier between all the weeds that were just here. And I do think it makes a difference leaving the root systems of plants intact rather than trying to rip out all the plants by their roots. But sometimes pulling stuff out by the roots can't be avoided, especially if it's like right next to something that you are trying to grow, or right where you want to plant something, and you know if you don't pull the root out, it'll come right back. And with stuff like this, I usually just leave it like right on top of where it was, so at least that becomes more mulch in the future. And then there's some aggressive things like grasses that I will always try and pull out by the roots, because they're so good at sending these massive root systems down and popping up somewhere else, and they can really choke out a lot of other plants. So those I do try and get all the roots of. So down this second row here, you can still see all the onions looking good, and I actually have planted down further this way my potatoes. So you can see I'm still missing some mulch in this area. I've got to go get more straw for that, but it does mean that you can see kind of where I planted the potatoes. These are my purple ones that had started sprouting, and so I left the tips of their little sprouts out of the soil, buried the rest of them in the dirt. I've got purple potatoes along here all the way to the end. I've got my new variety, which I'll have to put on the screen because I don't remember, and then golden potatoes in this last little section here. Common wisdom says that you know that it's time to plant potatoes when dandelions start to bloom, and I've also seen a crap ton of daffodils. Look at all those dandelions. Based on that logic, that looks like potato planting season to me. Right here in front of my trellises, I've been letting my lettuce starts hang out. I've got lettuce and spinach and kale, and I actually thinned them out to one plant per cell recently. which always feels really bad, but they definitely like perked up and started exploding like literally the day after I did that. So I'm really happy with how these are looking. Could not imagine them being really any healthier. Just gotta keep waiting for them to get to be a good size to be able to survive outside of their cute little box. Keeping them in there gives me the ability to cover them with that clear dome that you saw. Well, it's really more of a plastic box, and that's particularly useful for like the nights that it gets kind of a little too cold for them still, and also for when it's gonna rain really hard. I can just cover them up and the rain's not gonna hit them and potentially dislodge them or flood them really bad, and I can still continue to leave them outside, and I don't have to worry about bringing them in and out and in and out. I have them outside in the first place so that they can be acclimatized to the outside temperatures without me having to harden them off at all. Is acclimatized a word? Do I mean acclimate? I think I mean acclimated. Anyway, so on this trellis, actually on both of these trellises, when I planted potatoes, I also put peas on the inside of these trellises, although you'll notice there's still garlic and onions on the outside. These are looking really great overall. Brand new leaves coming up, and now that it's warming up during the day, they're getting more light, definitely starting to accelerate in their growth. This final row and pathway, this pathway is special because I added more mushroom spawn to it. I've got wine cap mushroom spawn sandwiched between the cardboard and the wood mulch, and I did this here last year, and I got like 2 mushrooms from it. So I figured I'll just supplement with more spawn, and hopefully it'll be more vigorous again this year, especially because I don't actually know the hardwood content of this free mulch that I got, and these mushrooms would really prefer to have hardwood, but I have a feeling that it's mainly pine right now. As I'm sitting here waiting for the wind to stop blowing between shots, it also occurred to me to tell you guys that leaving these outside in the wind like this over time is actually really good for them, because every time they get jostled, the plant is like, oh, I've got to add more cells and strengthen my stem. So leaving these out in the wind makes them much, much stronger than if they were sitting in the still air inside. And just a quick check-in on this one Brussels sprout over here. It is making nicer heads than it was near the top here. It looks really floppy because it's feeling actually kind of hot compared to what it's used to. But yeah, these Brussels sprouts are looking a little more solid than they were, which is nice, but they're all really condensed here at the top, and I haven't really seen any height growth from the middle, so I'm not really sure what that means for the overall health of the plant. Best I can do is watch and think about what I see as the plant continues on through its life cycle. I'll probably be taking it out when something has to go there for the summer garden, but for now it's just doing its thing, and we'll see what happens. When I was out planting yesterday, I did plant a little bit more cilantro in here. I do have some growing that seems to be kind of stunted from the cold that it survived, but I don't know, we'll see. It's kind of starting to make a lot of new stuff. And I also put in some chamomile seeds here. I'm gonna try and keep them very damp because chamomile is sown directly on the surface. Hey buddy. Yeah? I still haven't finished filling this raised bed. I dumped all the old potting soil in here. I dumped the rest of the mulch that I didn't use in the top here, and I've still got like 6 inches to fill here. So I got some different bagged composts because I don't need like a whole lot. It's not worth getting a trailer full. But I think I might end up needing more bagged compost than I thought. If you want to know more about how exactly I filled that raised bed, I do have a video talking about how I filled this one, and it's basically the exact same thing, so I'll go ahead and link that for you. Oh my goodness, look at this blueberry plant. Look at those buds. Those look so good. Those are so healthy looking, and they're such a pretty color. Unfortunately, not all of them look so great. This one has a total of 2 buds on the whole thing. I think I will have to replace this plant. Something happened to it. A cat peed like directly on it, or it got half dug up, and then, I'm not really sure, but it's been looking sad for a while. So I think it'll just, like, even if it does maybe come back, I think it'll always be a little stunted. So I think I will just go ahead and replace that plant. On the blackberries, you can see these little buds starting to leaf out all up and down these canes. That looks great. Raspberries are just a tad slower about it, but you can see these healthy buds all up and down the stem. They haven't quite come out yet, but they look healthy and solid, so I'm not too worried. Now that it's warming up and I have stuff to do out here, my garden bench that my dad built for me is actually getting some use. It looks great being outside. It's made of materials that are usually used for decking. So it's definitely just made to be outside 24/7, and the paint is looking good. I'm really happy with how this turned out. If you haven't seen this before, you can check out the video my dad made on his channel where he talks about making it, and I come over and help paint it and everything. It's really fun. I definitely should have started my seeds by now, but you know, one thing after another gets in the way, and I decided to make my own seed starting mix instead of buying, because everything that I could find at the store was just full of synthetic fertilizers, which I didn't want. So I'm making my own seed starting blend this year, and that turns out is taking a little bit. So I'm just a couple of days behind on seed starting, but I think by this weekend I will have it done. And I'm definitely going to be talking about it some more with you guys. But if you want to hear about seed starting like right now, I do have a couple of videos for you that I'll put up on the screen that I've made in the past about seed starting. And this year I'm going to be kind of focusing in on sort of the gear that I have for seed starting and how I've come to liking and using that gear over time after trying a couple of different things. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you, but in the meantime I do have practical videos here ready for you, help you get started in the meantime. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I do really appreciate your support. Like and subscribe to my channel if you really enjoy my videos, and if you want to support me monetarily, I do have a Patreon. I offer some really cool exclusive stickers for my patrons who these stickers are not available anywhere else currently, and they are designed by my friends, my beautiful friends, who they also get a portion of proceeds from my Patreon, and I really like being able to use this money to help support my friends who are just wonderful artists trying to make a living. Anyways, links for that are in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening.